So today's daf is daf Daled in Yoma. We left off 9 lines from the top of the Amud and Daled Amud Aleph. Tanya kevate de Rabbi Yochanan. Tanya kevade de Resh Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish have a machloket. They have a disagreement. From where do we get this concept that the Kohen has to separate and be isolated for 7 days before Yom Kippur? According to Rabbi Yochanan, we said the reason is based upon the Miluim, the installation of the original Kohanim during the dedication of the Mishkan. According to Resh Lakish, we learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu preparing for 6 days before he went up on Har Sinai. So of course the Gemara asked, why 7 days then? Oh, and they said because we're worried that he might become Tameh, but if he has relations with his wife, he'll become Tameh Nida and then he'll need the 7 days. So we extend it to 7 days for a different reason. Really it should be 6 days according to Resh Lakish. We add the extra 7th day just to be sure. But anyway, we have a baraita that supports Rabbi Yochanan's derivation and a baraita that supports Resh Lakish's derivation as well. So Tanyad kevate de Rabbi Yochanan. Where's the baraita that supports Rabbi Yochanan? Bizot yavo Aharon el kodesh. Okay, it says with this Aharon should come into the Kodesh, into the holy place, and this is from the very beginning of Parashat Acharemot, which describes the service of Yom Kippur. It says with this bizot. What does it mean bizot? B'ma she'amur be'inyan, with what was said be'inyan, in the other matter. What does that mean? So it's referring to something else. B'mai. So it says maihi. What other matter are you talking about? Be'inyan de miloim. What it means is that he should bizot yavo Aharon el kodesh means with the same qualification that he had for miloim. In other words, 7 days of isolation before being able to serve. So too, bizot yavo Aharon el kodesh, he should have 7 days of separation before coming in to serve. Uma amor be'inyan de miluim, and what was stated with reference to the miluim, Aharon peresh shiva, v'shimesh yom echad, that Aharon separated for 7 days and served for 1 day. Moshe masar lo kol shiva, and Moshe taught him all 7 days the details of the halachot of the service so that he would be ready. Va'af lidorot, so too in the future, Kohen Gadol poresh shiva. The Kohen Gadol has to separate for 7 days, shamesh yom echad, and he serves 1 day, meaning Yom Kippur. Ushnei talmidei chachamim mitalmidav shel Moshe, and 2 talmidei chachamim of the students of Moshe teach him, right? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu taught Aharon. The Gemara interrupts here. La'apukei tzadukim, which clearly is to exclude tzadukim. In other words, those who didn't believe in, who were not authentic students of Moshe Rabbeinu, because they didn't believe in the Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's why it mentions 2 students of Moshe Rabbeinu, meaning 2 authentic rabbis, not from one of these other sects like tzadukim.
Who taught this to Moshe Rabbeinu? Taught this to Talmidei Chachamim?
No, it's just saying they're students of Moshe Rabbeinu spiritually, not not directly.
No, because this is during the Talmud.
Right.
Not during Moshe.
It means that they received this is during the Bayit Sheni. They're talking about they received, they received from the tradition of Moshe Rabbeinu, not that they actually met Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why it says La Pukei Tzadokim, which means it's not telling you that these are actual students of Moshe Rabbeinu. They'd be very old. They'd be 1,000 of years old. To exclude Tzadokim, we don't want the teachers of the Kohen Gadol to be Tzadokim because they actually had a big machloket with the Chachamim, not just about Torah Sheba'al Peh, but specifically about Yom Kippur. There was specifically about Yom Kippur a couple things that they differed on, and the biggest one was that according to Tzadokim, the Kohen Gadol is supposed to put the Ketoret on the fire before he goes into the Kodesh HaKodeshim.
I'll tell you something.
Okay, and that is very important because we can't see the Kohen Gadol when he goes in. Right? So we don't know if he does it correctly or not. And since we don't know if he does it correctly or not, we have to make him swear. We're going to learn later. They made him swear to do it correctly because it was a machloket. According to the Chachamim, according to our tradition, the Kohen Gadol puts the Ketoret on the fire inside the Kodesh HaKodeshim, not outside. So that was why we had to make sure that the person teaching the Kohen Gadol knows what he's doing. Otherwise it won't be good.
I told you many times. I was in the museum of the Karaim.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Small museum, and they have Sefer Tefillah Yom Kippur in Hebrew, and the whole book was in in Greek, something.
Interesting.
And I told you that during the Second World War, they begged the Rabbanim
Same idea, but not the same people. So so they didn't want it to be tzaddokim. They wanted it to be the chachamim because they wanted to get the right halacha. Now, מוספים לו כל שבעה כדי לחנכו בעבודה. מכאן אמרו שבעת ימים קודם יום הכיפורים מפרישין כהן גדול מביתו ללשכת פרהדרין. This is where we get the idea that 7 days before Yom Kippurim they have to put the Kohen Gadol in the Lishkat Parhedrin, in the special chamber. וכשם שמפרישין כהן גדול, and just like they separate the Kohen Gadol, כך מפרישין כהן השורף את הפרה. They also would separate the Kohen who had to burn the para aduma. He didn't have to be the Kohen Gadol, but whoever that Kohen was would also have to have a 7 days of isolation before preparing it. And what would they do with him? He would go in the northeast chamber of the Beit HaMikdash. Every day of the 7 days, they would splash on him ashes of the para aduma. They would splash on him the water, the mechatat of the para aduma to purify him. They would do that for both of these. And maybe you'll ask, when Aharon and his sons were consecrated to be Kohanim at the times of the Miluim, at the time that the Mishkan was dedicated, they didn't splash them with water, they didn't splash them with the Para Aduma. What did they splash them with? Blood of the Korbanot every day. So the answer is, Nichnesu Mayim Tachat Dam. The water comes in the place of the blood. Okay? Right, it's in place of it. Ve'omer, and similarly it says, Ka'asher asa bayom hazeh, tziva Hashem lason lechaper alechem. Just like you've done on this day, Hashem is commanded to do, to atone for you. La'asot, when it says la'asot, elo maseh para. This means the para aduma. Lechaper, elo maseh yom kippurim. When it says lechaper, it means the avodah of Yom Kippur. In other words, what this Braita is saying is that we learned the whole thing from Miluim. We learned the whole thing from, like Rabbi Yochanan said, we learned the whole thing from the dedication of the Mishkan, this whole concept of the separation. And there were two. First, it makes an analogy, but it says bizot from the word bizot. And then it says ve'omer, and it also says kasher asa bayom hazeh tiva Hashem lasod lechaper alechem, which is another pasuk from which they learn that there's an analogy between Para Aduma and Yom Kippur to the Miluim. Now, the Gemara is going to ask first, wait a second, v'hai bizot mi ba'ele legufei, bepar ben bakar lehatat va'el le'olah. But bizot, that it says in the opening of Yom Kippur, it's necessary because it's telling you what Aharon has to bring. Bizot yavo Aharon el HaKodesh. What do you mean that that's extra? You don't have to learn anything from that. Bizot is what it says. And then it tells you, par ben bakar lechatat va'el le'olah. So why is that extra? So the answer is Amrei le korban lechudei lemakra bazeh o be'ele. Because since it's talking about masculine korbanot, bepar ben bakar ayil le'olah, the par is male, ayil is male. It should be a ram and a bull are both male. So it should say be'ele yavo Aharon el HaKodesh, or it should say bezeh yavo Aharon el HaKodesh in the masculine. The fact that it says bizot, my bizot shamat minat tarte. So therefore the word bizot teaches you not only these are the korbanot that he has to bring, but also teaches you the connection back to the Miluim, the connection back to the dedication of the Mishkan, and how the preparation that he has to have had prior to Yom Kippur is the same as what he had at the Miluim.
So bezot is feminine?
Bezot is feminine, zot. And then the question becomes, my ve'omer, why do you give me two sources? In the beginning of the Braita, it said that from bizot we know that Aharon had to have the same qualifications that he had on the day of the dedication of the Mishkan. He has to have for Yom Kippur. Why do you need ve'omer at the bottom? It gives another pasuk, kasher asa bayom hazeh tziva Hashem lasod lechaper alechem. So which one is it? From bizot or from that pasuk? Which pasuk? Why do you need another one? V'chite ma Yom Kippurim kamahu deba'e perisha ked ashkechan b'miluim. Aval b'Yom Kippur de'alma lo. Maybe you'll tell me that only Yom Kippur, the first Yom Kippurim, required it. Bizot yavo Aharon el HaKodesh. The first time he was going to do it, he had to go through the same procedure for Yom Kippurim that he went through at the Miluim the first year that he did Yom Kippur. Not in the future. Maybe you'll say that. Right? Inami, or Kohen Gadol kamahu de'ba'ei prishavel, Kohen Gadol be'almalo. Or maybe you'll say only the first Kohen Gadol, not the first year, but maybe only Aharon had to do this. Separation for 7 days before Yom Kippur. Just like he did for the Miluim. Just like he did for the dedication of the Mishkan. Maybe you'll say it's just the first Yom Kippur, or maybe just the first Kohen Gadol has to do it. So therefore, Tashema kasher asa v'chulei. That's why you need that extra pasuk to tell you not just for the generation of the Midbar, not just for Aharon, not just the first Yom Kippur, but even in the future. Tziva Hashem lasot lechaper alechem. This is what Hashem commanded for you, for your kapara, for your atonement, even in future generations. So that's the end of the Braita and the analysis of the Braita that supports Rabbi Yochanan. That goes according to the Shita that the basis for requiring the Kohen Gadol to separate for 7 days is the Miluim, the dedication of the Mishkan. And we worked at all the kinks in the Braita, so to speak. Now, Tanya Kivatei de Reish Lakish. There's a Braita that supports Reish Lakish. Moshe ala be'anan v'nit kasai be'anan. Moshe went up in a cloud and he was covered with the cloud. V'nit kadesh be'anan. And he was sanctified in the cloud. Kedei lekabel Torah li Yisrael bikdusha. So that he would receive the Torah for the Jewish people bikdusha in a state of holiness. She'ne'emar, as it says, Vayishkon kivod Hashem al har Sinai. Okay, that the glory of God rested on Mount Sinai. Ze haya ma'aseh achar aseret hadiberot shayu tchila la-40 yom. Divrei Rabbi Yosef Haglili. Now, what's the significance of this? Now, if you read the Torah, here's what you need to know to understand the ensuing discussion, okay? If you read the Torah, you have the Aseret HaDibrot, you have the people getting ready. They reach Mount Sinai on Rosh Chodesh of Sivan. They're camped around Mount Sinai. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu goes back and forth several times. Hashem tells him to tell the people to be ready on Yom HaShilishi. Okay, they have to prepare for 3 days. Now, then, at the end of Parashat Mishpatim, it says that the cloud covered Har Sinai for 6 days. And on the 7th day, Moshe was summoned to go up the mountain. The question is that thing at the end of Parashat Mishpatim, which is the following parasha, after Yitro, after the Aseret HaDibrot, is that statement at the end of Parashat Mishpatim describing something that happened earlier, or something that happened after the giving of the Aseret HaDibrot? So Rabbi Yossi Aglili says it worked like this. Moshe Rabbeinu went up and down the mountain, and the Torah was given, let's say, on the 6th of Sivan. Right? Shesh b'Sivan. Then what happens? Then 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day Moshe went up. So that means to say that on the 13th of Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu went up. Right? Because you had the 6 days of Sivan, 6 days of cloud, that's the 12th day, 13th Moshe goes up. That's what Rabbi Yossi Aglili says. So what happened at the end of Parashat Mishpatim happened later, after the giving of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva says, Vayishkon kivod Hashem merosh chodesh. No, the end of Parashat Mishpatim is a rewind. It's saying that the cloud had rested from Rosh Chodesh already. And the cloud covered the mountain as we turn to Amud Bet. Vayikra el Moshe v'chol Yisrael omedin. That Hashem called to Moshe, but Moshe v'chol Yisrael omedin. In other words, when it says that Hashem called to Moshe by Yom HaShivi'i vaya'al Moshe, that's talking about the giving of the 10 Commandments. Even though it's written at the end of Parashat Mishpatim. It's talking about what happened in the prelude to the giving of the 10 Commandments. The 6 days of cloud cover, and on the 7th of Sivan, Moshe went up. This is going according to the opinion, as we're going to see, that the Torah was given on the 7th of Sivan. It's a machloket.
And not the...
It has a disagreement. Not the 6th. So according to this, you had 6 days. It's not that there were 6 days the Torah was given, and then another 6 days Moshe waited, and then a 7th day Moshe went up. No, it was 6 days the people waited. 7th day the Torah was given, and Moshe went up. That's the way that Rabbi Akiva is understanding it.
That's Rashi's interpretation as well, I think.
So why then does it say only Moshe went up? What, right? Why does it say that Moshe Rabbeinu went up? Because it wants to give kavod to Moshe. Not because everyone else didn't go up. Everybody actually went up, meaning they all stood around the mountain and received the Torah on that day. It's these two events that are described in Yitro and Mishpatim are the same event. Not two different events, according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Natan Omer lo bahakatuv ela lemarek achila ushtiya shebeme'av l'sumo kemalachei hasharet. That according to Rabbi Natan agrees with Rabbi Yossi Aglili. That what happened was that you had 6 days of separation and the Torah was given. And then another 6 days of separation for only Moshe. And then the 7th day only Moshe went up. And what were the 6 days that Moshe had to separate after the giving of the Torah from after the 6th of Sivan? Those days were limarek, to clean out all of the food and drink that he had, so he would be like one of the angels. In other words, to transform him from a physical to purely spiritual for the receiving of the Torah.
The thing is, Moshe separated from his wife thereafter forever.
That's true, but we're just
But the requirement was 7 days, so we're just talking about the requirement.
We're just talking about the first time that he did it.
The first time,
Okay, so this is an extra 6 days, though, according to this. Rav Matya ben Charash omer, Lo ba katuv ela la'ayem alav, kedei shetei Torah nitenet be'ema birtet uvziyah. That what was the reason? He also holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili that this separation was only for Moshe Rabbeinu. After the giving of the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, Moshe had his own 6 days of separation and then went up on the 7th day. What did Moshe need his own 6 days of separation for? Le'ayem alav, to instill fear and awe in Moshe Rabbeinu, so that when he went in, as Rashi explains, that he says, Ulahavdilo mibnei adam, shetachul alav ema, so that he would be separated, so that he would become, he would have awe, bihyoto levado, yavin, viyasim levavo, that he would have understanding, and he would have concentration to go in be'ema, with fear. Okay? Again, only for Moshe Rabbeinu, according to this. Shene'emar, as it says, Ivdu at Hashem b'yir'ah, v'chilu bir'ada. It says, serve Hashem b'yir'ah, with fear, v'chilu bir'ada, and celebrate with trembling. My v'chilu bir'ada, this is a very famous chazal. What does it mean, v'chilu bir'ada, celebrate with trembling? Amar Rav Ada bar Matana, Amarav. Rav Ada bar Matana, Amar says, that Rav says, b'makom gila, shamte ra'ada, that in the place of joy should also be awe. Should also be trembling. In other words, a person shouldn't get carried away, even at the time of joy, as the Rashi explains, because it says, Pikudei Hashem Yisharim Misamach Halev, that Moshe Rabbeinu should be celebrating. The laws of Hashem bring joy to the person. So Moshe Rabbeinu would be very happy to receive the Torah, but yet he has to approach it bir adah. He has to approach it with awe. So all of these opinions are saying that the 6 days are only for Moshe Rabbeinu, except for Rabbi Akiva, who said that the 6 days described at the end of Mishpatim overlap with the 6 days in the in the beginning of Sivan. Now the Gemara says, that what is the argument between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Akiva? It's the following Tanaim. Tetanya, as we learned in a Braita, b'shisha b'chodesh nitana Torah liYisrael. Rabbi Yossi Omer b'shiv'a bo, that there's a machloket not between Rabbi Yossi Hagalili, he's somebody else, but the Tana Kama and Rabbi Yossi. The Tana Kama says that the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan. 6th of Sivan, which is what we usually accept, right? According to Rabbi Yossi, 7th of Sivan. This is a lengthy discussion in Masechet Shabbat. If you remember when we did the Daf of Masechet Shabbat a while ago, a long time ago, but that's a discussion in Masechet Shabbat about between Rabbi Yossi and the Tanna Kama, which day the Torah was given. But in any case, how does this relate to the machloket between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Akiva then? Man da'amar b'shisha nitena uv'shiva Allah. If you hold like the opinion that the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan, so it's perfect according to Rabbi Akiva. Why? He'll say, the first 6 days the cloud was on the mountain, like we said, and then the Torah was given. And then when it says Bayoma Shvi'i, it means Shvi'i of Sivan. The next day after the giving of the Torah was when he went up. Perfect, works perfectly. Do
you have the parentheses?
We skip it.
You skip it?
You always skip the soft parentheses and you use the block parentheses. Okay? Now, Man de'amar b'shiv'a, but the one that says on the 7th was when he received the Torah, b'shiva nitina u'v'shiva Allah. Then he received the Torah on the 7th day, and he went up on the 7th day, meaning to say 7 days later. D'chtiv vayikra Moshe b'yom ha'shvi'i. Okay, so Rabbi Yossi Aglili savar like Tana Kama. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds like the Tana Kama damar b'shisha b'chodesh nitina Torah. Okay, so Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds like the Tana Kama that the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan. So how does it work? Kilkach ze haya maaseh achar aseret hadibrot vayishkon kivod Hashem al har Sinai vayichaseu hayanan sheshet yamim. Okay, and then leMoshe vayikra el Moshe bayom hashvi'i lekabulei she'ar Torah. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili interprets like the Tana Kama. He says that on the 6th of the month the Torah was given. Then Moshe Rabbeinu had to wait another 6 days, and on the 7th day for Moshe, he went up to receive the rest of the Torah. So the first 6 days were for the whole Klal Yisrael. Then Moshe had his own 6 days of separation, 12th of Sivan, 13th of Sivan he went up. That's the way that Rabbi Yossi HaGlili interprets it. However, according to the Isal Kadat, first it's going to say the Isal Kadatach Vaishkon Kvod Hashem Mirosh Chodesh, because if you're going to tell me that the covering of the glory of God that covered the cloud that covered the mountain was from Rosh Chodesh, Vaychaseu Anan Lahar, but it's and the cloud covered the mountain. Vayikral Moshe Bayom HaShevi'i lekabulei aseret hadibrot, and that when Hashem called Moshe on the 7th day, it was to receive the aseret hadibrot. Hakabilu lehu mishisha. V'ha'istalek anan mishisha. How could that be? Since Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, in other words, understands that the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan, he agrees with the Tanna Kama that the Torah was given on the 6th of Sivan. So if that's the case, we have a problem, because you can only interpret it like he does. Why? Because he says, how could the Torah then say that on the 7th day Hashem called Moshe? He couldn't, because the 6th day, in other words, if you're telling me that these were the same event, Rabbi Akiva, why can't I agree with Rabbi Akiva? Says Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. Why can't I agree with him? Simply because if it says that the mountain was covered for 6 days, and then Hashem called Moshe on the 7th day, but wait a second, the Torah was given on day 6. If you're telling me that those are the same 6 days, the first 6 days of Nisan are the days that are being described. The calling of Moshe is the 7th of Sivan. That doesn't make any sense. Why would Hashem call Moshe on the 7th of Sivan? He has to call him on the 6th of Sivan to receive the Torah. Therefore, it must be a different event. There were 6 days, and then the Torah was given on the 6th day, and then there were 6 other days only for Moshe Rabbeinu, and on the 7th day he went up. Has to be. Otherwise, why is Hashem calling him on the 7th of Sivan? It's too late. He already received the Torah yesterday. That's the way that Rabbi Yossi HaGlili interprets. For Rabbi Akiva savar like Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Yossi. The Amar b'shiva b'chodesh nitna Torah l'Yisrael. So, in other words, therefore, what does he say? Perfectly. It says for 6 days they had to all separate, and on the 7th day Hashem called Moshe. Why did he call Moshe? To receive the Aseret HaDibrot, and then the rest of the Torah too. It wasn't on the 13th of Sivan; it was on the 7th of Sivan. So when it says that Hashem called Moshe on the 7th day, it means the 7th of Sivan.
We celebrate the 6th.
We do the 6th. Rabbi Akiva would say we're celebrating the 6th, the wrong day. We're not celebrating the right day. Although actually in those days when they didn't establish the calendar based on a fixed time, it could come out because of the Omer. It could sometimes come out that it would be the 6th. And sometimes the 7th. For Rabbi Akiva, Savar, like Rabbi Yossi. Okay, we did that already. I'm sorry, Bishlam, other Rabbi Akiva. So we understand Rabbi Akiva, therefore, it makes sense that on the 17th of Sivan, the Luchot were broken. Why? Because, look like this, Esrin ve'arba'ad Sivan. Because he's telling us that on the 6th of Sivan, the Torah was, that on the 7th of Sivan, right, was when the Torah was given. Moshe Rabbeinu went up on the mountain on the 7th of Sivan. So that leaves 24 days of Sivan that he's on the mountain. Right? Because the first 6 minus the first 6, the rest of the day is 24 days. Starting from day 7, Moshe Rabbeinu is on the mountain. Vishitzar de Tammuz. And then you get another 16 days into Tammuz. That's 40 days. Works perfectly. Malu lahu arba'in yomin dahava bahar. And so that makes you 40 days that he was on the mountain. He came down on the 17th of Tammuz, and he broke the luchot. Makes sense, right? The days work out. But we have a bit of a difficulty according to Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. Because he's going to have to say like this: you have 6 days of Perisha. In other words, he says that you have 6 days that the Torah was given. Starting from day 7, actually, Moshe Rabbeinu is separating. That's up to day 12. Now he's going up on day 13. So how many days are going to be left? If we have to count 40 days now, what are we going to have to do? How many days are left then? Right? We're not going to have enough days. You're going to have day 14. He's going to go up to the mountain on day 13 through 30. Okay, so we're losing those days. So what happens? Ve'arba'in dahar ad esrin utlat betamuz lo itbor luchot. Until the 23rd of Tammuz, the luchot are not going to be broken yet. Because in other words, you're going to have another. You're going to lose 6 additional days, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Because according to Rabbi Akiva, Moshe Rabbeinu went up on the 7th of Tammuz. According to 7th of Sivan. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go up until the 13th of Tammuz of Sivan, because he waited 6 days after the giving of the Torah to go. He didn't go on the 7th. Rabbi Akiva says the Torah was given on the 7th and Moshe Rabbeinu went up on the 7th. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says no, he did not. He didn't go the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. When did he go up? 13th. So what did he lose? He lost 6 days. Okay, so therefore what's going to happen? Instead of the 17th of Tammuz, it's going to be the 23rd of Tammuz. So what does Rabbi Yossi Aglili do with our tradition that the luchot were broken on the 17th of Tammuz? Amar lach Rabbi Yossi Aglili, arba'in dehar b'hadei shisha de prisha. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu didn't actually go up onto the mountain until the 13th of Sivan, since he started his preparation on the 7th of Sivan, which is the same day that Rabbi Akiva says he actually went up, right? We count that separation that he did to prepare to go on the mountain as part of the time. Because he was isolated, so he wasn't with the people. So he really was separated from the people for 40 days. Just the first 6, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he wasn't actually on the mountain. But they all agree on the start date. We start counting from day 7 of Sivan. According to Rabbi Akiva, we start counting from day 7 of Sivan because he went on the mountain on day 7 of Sivan. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he actually went up on the 13th, but starting from day 7 of Sivan, he was isolated from the people and separated, and therefore we start counting the 40 days from the 7th of Sivan no matter what. Everything is beautiful. So now, Amar Mor, the master said, Vayikra el Moshe b'chol Yisrael omedin. The Braita says that when Moshe was called on the 7th day, Moshe and all the people stood. Misayale the Rabbi Elazar. This supports Rabbi Elazar. The Amar Rabbi Elazar vayikra el Moshe b'chol Yisrael omedin. That when Moshe was called on that 7th day, that included everybody. V'lo bah katuv el lehalek lo kavod le Moshe. And the Torah is only coming to honor Moshe. That follows the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. That 7th day was the 7th day that everybody was called, right? There was an overlap between the people and Moshe Rabbeinu. Medivevir is an objection. Kol lo, kol elav. It should say that the voice reached Moshe. Why does it say kol elav? Moshe shama, v'chol Yisrael lo sham'u. That means that Moshe heard, but everybody else didn't hear. Okay? So meaning, why does it say, so Rashi says, why does it say elav lilamidcha she'elav levado haya nimshach hakol? So why here is it, you're comparing Moshe to the rest of the people, saying that Hashem summoned everybody at the same time. But wait, don't we have a principle that Moshe could hear the voice but not everybody else? So lo kashya, no problem. Because ha b'sinai ha be'ohel moed. When did it say that only Moshe Rabbeinu could hear the voice? Vayishma et hakol midaber elav. That's when the Beit HaMikdash was dedicated. That's in the after the Ohel Moed was set up, after the Mishkan was dedicated, and he started hearing the voice from the Mishkan. But prior to that, when Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, everybody heard. Alternatively, when Moshe Rabbeinu was summoned, only he heard. But when Hashem gave the dibrot, everybody heard. So there were certain communications that we could call private communications between Hashem and Moshe. Other communications were public. Rabbi Zrika Rami. Rabbi Zrika raised a Rami Kura'e, Kamed Rabbi Elazar. He revealed a contradiction in Pesukim in front of Rabbi Elazar. But Amri, some say, Amar Rabbi Zrika, Rabbi Elazar Rami. Some say that Rabbi Zrika didn't point out this contradiction himself. He reported it in the name of Rabbi Elazar. It says in one place that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't go into Ohel Moed because the cloud rested on it. But it says in Mount Sinai that Moshe Rabbeinu walked right into the cloud. So why is it that in Ohel Moed he couldn't go in because of the cloud, and at Har Sinai he went through the cloud? it teaches you that yes, Moshe Rabbeinu could not of his own accord enter into the cloud of the divine presence, but Hashem pulled him in when it came to Har Sinai. That's one interpretation. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael Tana, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael had a different interpretation. Nemar kan bitoch, v'nemar lahalan bitoch. It says here that he went bitoch ha'anan, in the midst of the cloud. And it says over there, vayavo'u b'nei Yisrael bitoch hayam, that Bnei Israel went in the midst of the sea. Malehalan shevil, dichtiv v'amayim lehem choma, afkan shevil. True, Moshe Rabbeinu could not walk into the cloud. But just like Hashem split the sea and made a path for the Jews to walk through at the Yam Suf, at the Sea of Reeds, so too Hashem made a path for Moshe Rabbeinu to walk through the cloud. But at Ohel Moed, when the cloud filled the Mishkan, when it filled the tabernacle, he did not make an opening for Moshe to come through. Vayikra Moshe vaydaber. It says Hashem called Moshe and spoke. Lama higdim kriya ledibur. Why does it say that Hashem called Moshe before speaking? Limida Torah derech eretz. The Torah teaches you proper derech eretz, proper manners. Shelo yomar adam davar lachavero ela imken koreu. You shouldn't start talking to your friend until you call him first. In other words, you should get his attention first. You don't just start talking to somebody. Misayale Rabbi Hanina. This supports Rabbi Chanina. Ta'amar Rabbi Chanina lo yomar adam davar lachavero ela imken korehu lemor. Okay, the lemor is the next part. Ela imken korehu. So that a person should not say something to his friend unless he first calls him. Lemor. Why does it say Hashem spoke to Moshe lemor? To say. Amar. What should it say? Amar. Rabbi Menasya, it says it should say.
Right, Menasya, that's it. Right. Barbary, de Rabbi Menasya.
Right. And then it says Rabbah at the end. I'm not sure how that fits. Minayin la omer davar lachavero shehu beval yomar ad sheyomar lo lech emor. How do you know that if somebody tells you something, you should not tell them, you shouldn't tell it to anybody else, unless they tell that you're allowed to. In other words, unless they give you permission to tell. Somebody tells you something, you shouldn't share it unless they give you permission to tell. How do we know that? Because Shneimar vaydaber Hashem elav me'ohel moed lemor. Because it says Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu from Ohel Moed lemor, to say, meaning that he should go ahead and tell it to Bnei Israel. Now, the Gemara is going to get into a whole new sugya here that really we should leave for tomorrow, but we're just going to introduce it with the first couple of lines, but then we're going to conclude because otherwise it will take us all the way through the next stuff. So then what the Gemara is going to say is, Miklal de Tarvayu, Sevira lahu, Miloim, Kola Katuv Bahen, Me'akev Bahen. That according to everybody, anything that was written about the Miloim, if it was omitted from the service, would have been me'akev, would have invalidated the service. Everybody agreed on that. And how do we know that they agreed on that? Because Resh Lakish, da itmar, miloim, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, chad amar kol hakatuv behen me'akev behen, v'chad amar davar me'akev ledorot me'akev behen, she'en me'akev ledorot, en me'akev behen. That Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan had a machloket. One said anything written about the miluim, about the dedication of the Mishkan, was me'akev, was indispensable. One said no, only things that would be indispensable in future sacrifices will be indispensable in this case, in the case of the installation, in the case of the dedication. Okay? Tistayem de Rabbi Yochanan hu damar kol hakatuv behen me'akev behen, and definitely it was Rabbi Yochanan who said that anything written with regard to the miluim was indispensable. How do we know that it was him and not Rabbi Chanina? Because notice, it said Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Chanina had an argument. Chad amar this and Chad amar this means they didn't know who said what. So it must have been Rabbi Yochanan who said it was me'akev. Why? Because Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Imam miloim kol hakatuv behen me'akev behen velo kamehader le velo midi. That because Rish Lakish, remember, said, just like at the miluim, anything written about the miluim, anything written about the dedication of the Mishkan, if it was left out, would have invalidated the dedication. So too you must hold, since you learn the separation of the Kohen Gadol 7 days before Yom Kippur from the Miluim, you must maintain that if he doesn't separate for 7 days before, that it's invalid. And yet we see that he has an understudy who in fact does not separate for 7 days beforehand. He can fill in on the spot. So we see that Rish Lakish, his assumption was that anything written about the dedication of the Mishkan was indispensable. And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't dispute that. He doesn't say, no, you're wrong, not everything written about the Miluim was indispensable.
He's just saying it's not necessary for the understudy.
Right, he gives a different answer, but he doesn't dispute that point. So what do you see from that? You see from that Rabbi Yochanan agreed, anything written about the Miluim, anything described in the Torah that had to be done for the dedication of the Mishkan would be indispensable if it had been left out. And we'll see in the next daf what this was referring to.